Your self-love does not equate to your self-worth, and your worth and your love highly comes from within, regardless what the world tells you. The first step is finding rest. Why am I not able to make certain decisions? Why am I easily agitated? Resting is not weak. Being able to rest your mind, your body, your spirit is very, very strong. Self-love is not weakness. Don't scroll your screen before you go to bed. Hi everyone, welcome back to Boss Up Season 1, Episode 7. Today I'm just alone here because we want to end the Season 1 a bit more special. I started the first season with me sharing about who I am and where I come from. And I thought as we wrap out Season 1, in the last episode, I want to talk a little bit about what does loving yourself mean. And before I prep for this podcast, I have a few things on my phone right now. I was just playing multiple images in my head, thinking that how do I want to frame today's messaging so that for you that's listening to this, you kind of get some nuggets along the way. So if you have never tuned in before, welcome to Boss Up, where we want to remind you, no matter what life circumstances happen to you or for you, you got to boss up and make it happen, because I believe every single one of us have that boss up attitude inside of us, regardless. It's just different circumstances, situation. You got to know the right button to push to bring that boss up attitude out. Yeah. So let's begin. Let's dive straight in. If you're driving, just know that you're not alone. Wherever you're heading to, you come first. And if you are listening to this while you're showering, or you are just, getting yourself ready to go to bed, or getting yourself ready to kickstart your day, I hope by the end of this episode, you will know that your self-love does not equate to your self-worth, and your worth and your love highly comes from within, regardless what the world tells you. So let's dive straight in. The first thing I wanted to talk about today is rest, because when we talk about self-love, there is so many correlation around this word of self-love. So self-love. So the world or the internet or the social media kind of paint you a picture of loving yourself means, soaking yourself in a bathtub with your towel wrapping in your head, sipping a chamomile tea, or, traveling around the world, lying down at this sunbathing bath suit in front of the sea. I think those are all great, but I personally think that self-love, the first step is finding rest. And what does that mean? Obviously, we're talking about the physical rest of sleeping and, taking a break when you're hustling, yada, yada. But I think, in my opinion, rest comes in two forms. Number one is your physical rest. Let's start with the scientific part of things. Physical rest highly links to your brain. So if you don't have enough sleep, it affects your prefrontal cortex and your frontal cortex, and that's why it links to your decision making. You experience fatigue, you feel physically weak, and then you cannot get out from bed. Right? How many of you actually know that feeling of like when you wake up, you're like, my bed is so sticky to my back, because that is physical rest, right? So, but of course, it's a whole new topic when we're talking about people that have insomnia, that no matter how hard you want to sleep, but you cannot sleep and you have to take some melatonin or stuff. That's a topic for another day. But I think rest comes in two forms. Number one is physical rest. So if you're listening to this and I'm talking about you, you better clock in that physical rest. Even if it's not 8 hours, I say start from 6. If you haven't been getting 6 hours of sleep, like consecutively for like 4 days, your brain will go into this state of fatigue. And when you have fatigueness, it actually creates brain fogginess. And that's why you wonder, why am I not able to make certain decisions? Why am I easily agitated? How come I can't think straight? And then it affects your emotional health, appetite, blah, blah, blah. You get the drill, right? So that is the first part. So something about me, if you don't already know, if you follow me on my socials, you will know that on weekends, especially Sunday, my Sunday are super sacred. So it's my non-negotiable. It's on my calendar. One of my favorite quote that I live by is, don't tell me your priorities, show me your calendar. So on every Sunday morning, my non-negotiable is I wake up, I go to church with my family. After church, we have lunch, and then I will clock in my sleep time. Whether or not it's taking 2 hours nap, usually it's 3 to 5, or it will be 3 to 5, I'll go to a cafe. Exactly like that picture right? You put on your earpods, drink your iced latte, sometimes matcha, and then you just type it away. So I don't do work 3 to 5. I literally type my feelings. I listen to something that I like, or I just discuss with my husband about like our family. I don't know, can be next travel plans, can be Kai Kai's next school, can be what do we like about ourselves this week or next. So I do this like pretty much every single week, unless that Sunday from 3 to 5, I have a non-negotiable thing. But usually no, because do you know, just to share with you a tip, I don't know where I read this. Based on statistic, Sunday 3 to 5, right? It's the World's Nap Day. I forgot where I got this before. So it's like, it's proven that Sundays all around the world, specifically from 3 to 5, 最多人是没有工作的啦. I don't know if you relate that, maybe leave me a comment below, then I know. But yeah, so that's what I do pertaining to physical rest. So now comes the second bit of rest. So have you ever felt that no matter how much you sleep, and then when you wake up, you still feel tired? No matter how much you think you sleep, you do your Fitbit, your Apple Watch, your kind of yada yada health check, and you wake up, you still feel tired. So personally, I feel that this rest, it's a soul rest. It is a body. It's something goes beyond your physical body, right? So what does it mean? I feel that this rest comes in two segments. One is the rest of your mind, right? So sometimes you physically lie down on a bed, although your eyes are like shutting, sleeping already, but your mind just can't stop. You're like, I keep thinking. Okay, so I like to break it down into two parts. One is the scientific part. So the scientific part tells you, don't scroll your screen before you go to bed, because it activates your, I forget the term okay, but it basically makes you very, very sharp before you go to bed. So the blue light is bad for you. So that's why sometimes before we go to bed, we find ourselves like, I'm guilty of that. My head just have all the crazy ideas, especially late nights. Then I get anxious before I sleep. Then it affects your sleep, and then it affects your first physical rest. So that's your first part, which is how do you quiet your mind and allow your mind to rest. And I must say that I'm in my 30s this term. I'm in my 30s now. I feel that it gets better as you grow older, because as I grew, I realized that there is this button that you can shut your mind to rest. There is. So what I do personally, and I want to share with all of you today, is I really practice being in the moment. So I listened to this podcast that says most people tell you that you have to find momentum in what you do, right? But what if I say the key doesn't lie in the momentum but in the moment, right? So if you're able to catch yourself living in certain moments each day, that is what make your mind feel alive. And in the opposite of it, it helps your mind to rest also. Does that make sense? So that is the mind rest bit. So second bit, which I think is a little bit deep, but it's my podcast, so I want to talk about it, which is your soul rest. So how many of you actually realize or take notice that there are some times that you just feel this sense of worrying, this worry feeling, and you can't really explain why. So sometimes you have physical sensation like heart palpitation, jittery feeling, and then you have like shivers in your hand. Those are physical sensation. But some days you don't have those physical sensation, but your face are like just, you can just smile and you can show up at work, but there's just this unrestness in you, right? If you know what I'm talking about, yes, I'm talking to you. So this rest, I like to talk about it because most people don't even know how to even begin realizing that about ourselves. So it took me a long time to get to where I am. So beyond the but by now, if you're listening to this podcast by now, if you got do the first two part, you're okay already. Because number one is physical rest, number two is mind rest. But the third part is where you gain the wholesomeness. So when I talk about soul rest, is really, can you not worry about tomorrow? So you see, the world, even me, as I'm telling you this, it's also a great reminder to ourselves. We are so used to plan. I mean, come on, I run an 8-figure business. I built more than 20 teammates. I have more than, 10 affluent clients in my team. What are you talking about? My job is literally plan. If there's one paper for me to write my resume as the CEO of 7-Volt, it would be problem solve every single second. That's what I do. And what do you mean by problem solve? It simply means think 10 steps ahead. It simply means anticipate threats. It simply means anticipate problems and solve them before they happen. Right? That's literally my job. Professionally, that's my job. I have to anticipate problems and I have to solve them, prevent them from happening, because if not, it turns to a crisis. But having that said, it is very important to know that distinction between having the ability to plan forward because it's needed, but there is emotion that you can, the emotion and rhythm that you can follow. So for me, it took me a long while. When I was in my teenage years, obviously I don't learn this, I don't know this. But one thing about soul rest is knowing that you can be in the present, and yet the future will take care of itself. So the context I'm talking about here is rest, okay? Don't take my word out of context. I don't mean don't plan for your future. I don't mean don't plan for crisis, okay? You still have to do that professionally or work. Like, I'm a mother of 2. Of course I have to plan what? If my kids are having flu, of course I have to plan whether or not to send them to hospital. So don't take my word out of context. But my context I'm talking here is about rest. When we're talking about physical rest, rest in the mind and rest in the soul. So that soul stillness, can you actually accept that the present is now? Can you accept that being in rest simply means that stillness and that beingness, knowing that you have given your best, and regardless of what will happen tomorrow, it will be. And some guru right? They talk about like everything happened in the beauty of its own time. Flower will bloom. The flower don't compete with the flower next to them. But I personally think when it comes to self-love, the first part, which is the most important part, is rest. Okay? Recap. Love. Self-love. Part 1, rest. 3 segment. Physical rest, mind rest, resting your mind, and your soul rest. Okay? Write that down. Now, second part. When it comes to self-love, okay, besides resting, a lot of people talk about passion. People talk about hobbies. People talk about community. So in my opinion, self-love, once you have settled the rest part, is you got to be able to focus out. So let me ask you a very, very big question. What's the point of self-love? Take a moment. You love yourself so that you can love others. You think about it. If you keep loving yourself. So most people in the world nowadays, okay, don't want to point fingers. We talk about self-love. Actually, a lot of it is about the part 1 about rest. Because people are not resting enough. We are all hyperactive. We are all fat with info top, right, left, center. So the big part about self-love is rest. But in my opinion, probably contrary to popular belief, I would like to think that the second big part of self-love is gaining fulfillment for yourself. Right? You get joy. You feel fulfilled. And if you look at the Harvard Dictionary, what does passion mean? Passion simply means finding joy and fulfillment in a specific activity, think, or action. That's what passion is, right? So the second part of self-love is, layman term, you can say, find your passion lah. But I'm not so shallow. I would like to think that the second bit about self-love is you gotta love yourself so that you can love others. Because in the motion of loving others, you're in contribution. And when you follow the moment of contribution, you will always gain joy and fulfillment. And when you have joy and fulfillment, it's pretty much where you get your worth. So think about it. Think about the last time that you truly felt worthy. Think about the last time you truly felt appreciated, wanted, worth it. It is highly, highly because you have did something for someone else. So it correlates. If you want to be able to live a life with joy, with fulfillment, with passion, nowadays people talk about like energy, aliveness, passion. But you can't just wake up and feel passionate. I mean, maybe some days you can lah, okay? But most days we can't, because passion is highly, highly relates to joy and fulfillment. And joy and fulfillment doesn't come if you are just doing things for yourself. It just doesn't work. True joy comes from liberation, and true liberation comes from knowing that your life has a purpose and your gift and your talents truly are made for you to serve others. And so that's the second part for me. And last but not least, I think I want to talk a little bit about how self-love linked to hustling. It's very a bit contrasting, right? But I personally think there is a lot of notion tied to the word hustle. But in my personal opinion, hustling simply means giving your best. Hustling simply means pushing through and having resilience, having mental resilience, having tenacity. To me, that is hustling. But of course, I don't deny the fact that I think sometimes people overuse the word and it kind of linked to a bit like you hustle and then you don't stop and then your body break and then you blah, 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 blah. So I think that's not what I'm trying to say, but I'm trying to talk about mental resilience when it comes to self-love. So when you want to be able to fight for something, hustle for something, if you're not careful, you will tie your worth to the result. So one thing I learned that my result does not dictate my worth. So you see, I can share with you this one thing that I learned from a training. They teach us this thing called be, do, have. But the world is so used to telling you have, do, be. I want to have a successful career. I want to have a nice car. I want to have a nice house so that I can do something and then I will be happy. Because I want to have a nice car, therefore I work, right? And then I be happy. Because I want to have a great marriage, then I start doing, right? I start to take actions. I want to go khao loi, khao zai. I want to go fit. I want to exercise because then I will be happy. But this is a wrong thing I learned. It's wrong. The sequence is wrong, right? The right sequence, it should be, do, have. Everything comes from your being. Like I always tell my team, not just doing, but being. So when I talk about being is, how do you want to show up? There are many words to reframe this sentence, but we talk about being as like, what are you being today? So like today I'm in this podcast, I just finished a coaching session. I came into this podcast, I just wanted to give. So my being is just, I want to serve. I don't know, maybe only one people listen to this video on YouTube. Only one of you listen to this on Spotify or Apple iTunes, Apple Podcasts. Or one of you just actually saw this clip on Instagram. My being is just, I want to serve. I want to be honest. I want to be authentic. I want to be open. That's my being, right? So with that openness, with that authenticity, with my state that's my being. And then what am I doing, right? I am talking. That's my action right now. I am giving points. I'm sharing my stories. So that is my doing. And what will I have? We don't know what I have first. We don't know what I have yet. Probably when I end this, I'll feel good. And then I will have a great day. Right? So you see, most often it's the balik one, The balik, like go the other way around. Oh, I want to have a good day. I have to do certain thing. And then I want to be. Yeah. So this part about worth and result correlation, I want to just tell you the season that I'm in. I think that I'm not perfect yet. There are still days that when I don't hit the result that I want, whether it's my fitness journey, whether it's my morning routine. One of my commitment right now is to read the Bible every single morning for 30 minutes. So some days I fail and I get like, 30-minute Bible also cannot read. You want to change the world, Adele, you suck. Yeah, that's the inner thought that I have also. But I tell myself, no, I don't tie my worth to my results. And I think rest doesn't mean that you're weak at all. In fact, this is my recent years realization. The stronger you are, the more powerfully you will rest. Hear that again. The stronger you are, the more powerfully you will rest. Because true rest is not the physical sleep. True rest is not you just walking down Bukit Bintang and drinking your coffee. That's not true rest. Real strong people know how to rest. Because when you truly rest, you go down to the core of your body, your mind, your spirit. Trust me, when you bounce back, that mental clarity is just HD. What other people do in 3 hours, you probably get done in 3 minutes. And that's the powerful thing about rest. So if you're listening to this today, I just want to remind you that resting is not weak. Being able to rest your mind, your body, your spirit is very, very strong. Find the right way to rest. And number 2 is that your worth is not dictated just by the results that you create. Sure, having results is great, right? We all want results. But in this notion of pursuing greatness, pursuing performance, don't directly relate your results to your worth. Because it is not. Your worth doesn't come from the result. Because if you're listening to this and you highly feel that 100% of your worth is tied to the things that you do, then you're doomed. Because your worth is from you. It's your ability to be open, to be honest, to be authentic, to be loving, to be present, to be giving. These are you, right? Giving, loving, authenticity, caring. This has nothing to do with your performance. Have you ever heard people say, let's compete who love each other more? Let's compete who care for each other more. Let's put an index to measure who is more authentic. There's no such thing. Because that's your being. Rest is not a weakness. It is a rhythm. And to all of you that's listening to this, if there's one thing I want you to capture is self-love is not weakness. It is the true beginning of strength, especially if you're on this journey to becoming a leader. The biggest thing about leadership, and I probably will share this in the next podcast, is that before you want to lead others, you got to lead yourself. And before you want to lead yourself, you got to make sure that you're power pack. So before you make sure you're power pack, you have to find rhythm in rest. That's all I have for you today. I hope this little sharing help accompany you go through your day, your weeks, and leave me a comment below. Tell me what is the one thing that resonates with you the most, and I would love to hear from you. That's all for the season 1, episode 7, Boss Up with Adele Chow. I hope to see you again. Go ahead and like, share, subscribe. Follow me on Adele Chow, Boss Up with Adele Chow, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!